It's a good day to be a League of Legends fan, because Riot is improving the player experience. How, you may ask? By cracking down on overlays. Yes, especially in the last few months, overlays kinda became a hot topic, and that's simply because, for some reason, more and more people started using them. And so now, finally, they did become Riot's priority. Or at least they became one of the things they really care about. And so, let's dive into what's actually happening. You see, this all started on the Riot Game Developer Relationships Twitter. I'll have to be honest, I had no idea Riot had social media for such a thing. But it is Riot social media that gives help and feedback for developers who are developing third-party applications. In other words, it's the people who help fans make cool things for League. And well, here we got quite the news to share. In case you missed it, it all started 2 months ago. As I mentioned, it was roughly here where a conversation about overlays rose. And yeah, this is something I've never really thought about because I've never used an overlay in my life. Not for League and not for TFT, where arguably they are far more effective. But especially in League, overlays kinda became a plague. Because they started giving people straight up unfair advantages. And that is on top of searching the other player's information, that is on top of giving you entire builds on how to build your champion directly in the game, and that is all while all of this information usually doesn't work. It's not because the information would be bad, it's mostly just people who think they are improving. And so a lot of people started using them. However, on top of this information overload, there are overlays that actually do useful things. For example, there are some that give you spell timers and jungle timers. When it comes to jungle timers, why are they not a default thing? I don't know. But this is an example of a straight up advantage in the game. With another such big advantage being ultimate timers. These were something that could literally decide the course of a teamfight, which is why about 2 months ago, Riot updated their policies and they realized, you know what? Maybe after 9 years we should do something about this. And so, during the latest update on the overlay situation, they took away all of those that could track ultimates. Now, in the last video where we talked about all of this, you may remember that I dove into all the overlays and I finally learned what they are about. And I found out one crucial thing. A lot of the overlays are paid. But more importantly, I didn't know that some of these overlays put ads into your game. Like, I kinda joked about it last time because I found the concept ridiculous, but apparently this was far more of an issue than I thought. In fact, it bloated so much that Riot pushed out another update. Hey everyone, we've updated our policy around advertising in Riot games. Third-party in-game advertisements are no longer allowed. This includes ads in overlays, during loading screens, and in the Riot client. Now, are you telling me that some of these apps put ads into the client without the client imploding? Now, after these news came out, there were a lot of people who joked about the Blitz app instantly vaporizing. I'm gonna assume that was one of the most infamous ones when it comes to ads in the game. But what I got really curious about is, well, the rest of everything. Are premium overlays actually allowed? Can they still look up your player information? And well, it turns out that Riot has an entire article where they talk about what is and isn't allowed. And the entire read is very interesting. It is all dropped here in Riots Policies, which were updated on the 29th of May 2025. That's when the ads got nuked. They summarize that all of these are the policies that tackle League's API. For those of you who don't know, an API is essentially a connection that gives you all the possible information that the game can give you under the hood, after which we get the specific policies. You'll see that here they talk about a product, which is a broad term, but in our context specifically, the product is the overlay. So first of all, the overlays cannot violate the law. For example, the overlay can't dox you, that would be illegal. But then it says do not create or develop games utilizing Riot's IP. This is interesting because this has many layers. On the surface, people will understand this as please don't steal our IP, thank you. But there are conditions under which this is fine. And right above this, you'll see that these conditions are set by the terms of service, which everyone knows, right? we've all read them, but also the legal jibber jabber. Yes, this is the name of the document, which essentially tells you that it is fine to use Riot's IP to make videos, or use their music in the background of your work. And you are free to draw art inspired by Riot's IP. And that is all if your work is not directly sold. Now, there is also a part that says that they can give people the permission to sell smaller things, such as prints and keychains. This is why you can see them all across different cons, but that's a whole different part. The key part is that under the first point, people can make their fan-made games if they are kept free. This is why we could play the fan-made Riot MMO made by Unbonny. Although there is a line that says that Riot reserves the right to just take the game down if they want. I guess no one can blame them. Anyway, next, it is funny that the overlays can't be linked to cryptocurrencies or blockchains. Let's ignore the fact that Riot recently partnered with a cryptocurrency marketplace. The overlays also can't resemble Riot's games and products in function and style. What this is saying is basically, don't make our games for free. Of course, this is not specifically talking about overlays, but it also translates into don't make our skins for free, thank you. This is why custom skins are in such a gray area. They are technically resembling something that Riot is selling in the game, after which Riot also gives people specific logos to put on their overlays and products if they wanna advertise them. Next, they mentioned that all available ads have to be approved by Riot. Yes, this is something that many people may not have been aware of. After which we get to the new and interesting details. The monetization. So, the overlays cannot feature betting and gambling. At least this is something that really separates Riot from Valve. I mean, can you imagine overlays that would allow you to bet on games directly? Now, next it mentions that the apps can be monetized, but it has to be approved by Riot. But this also has a couple of conditions. All overlays must have a free version. And it says that they may include advertisements. This may confuse a lot of people, so to clear things, this means that the apps can have ads in their own clients if they are launched separately. The new addition actually comes in at the end of this segment. There it mentions that the ads can't be placed in Riot's property. So they can't be integrated into the in-game overlay, which includes the loading screens, or in the client. Once again, that is assuming the client doesn't implode. Besides this, they also mentioned that while the premium versions are fine, which includes subscriptions, donations and crowdfunding, you can ask for tournament entry fee if you are hosting one. But it also mentions that the monetization cannot be unfair towards players. And again, Riot reserves the right to take down your app if they find something fishy. After this, besides the tournament policies, which are not important right now, there is one more thing that we know Riot is still talking about internally. And that is game integrity. And this is quite a fascinating part. It says that overlays cannot alter the goal of a game, which is destroying the Nexus. This means you can't give people alternative goals. So you can't give them fake score for example, keeping the game as long as possible, where the longest recorded game would win a tournament or something. Also, the overlays cannot give unfair advantages, which is as gray of an area as it can get. But it does also include stuff like mimicking mechanical advantages, also known as scripting. The overlays also cannot take away your decision making. They should only highlight the next best decision. So they can't just wipe out the entire store and give you the best statistical next item. And yes, this also goes for leveling, they just can't take away your options. What is interesting is that they also can't come up with an entirely new ranking system. This is why the overlays stopped reporting stuff like the MMR or ELO. And finally, the overlays can't access your information if you are playing anonymously. Now, the latest change to all of this with the ultimate trackers was put in under the unfair advantages. And on Twitter, Drew Levin, who fought a lot of people who had a lot of interesting takes on overlays, also confirmed that the team is still looking into additional things that might be taken down. Stuff like summoner spell tracking or the jungle camp trackers. The biggest issue here is that even if you take down all the overlays, people will still be able to track all of this on their phones. And so is the only real option to take down all the overlays and put all the information into the game directly? Well, for all I know, if Riot does that, that might be for the better. Sure, if we suddenly have jungle timers, that might take away from some of the skill that comes with tracking it. But more importantly, it does make the game ever so slightly more accessible for newer players. And we all know League needs that if it wants to live. And so yes, slowly but surely, Riot is cracking down on overlays. And they are dealing with some of the bigger problems that come out of them. One such thing are the ads inside League. And I still can't believe this even existed. I remember like it was yesterday when people were mad about ads in Street Fighter. I mean, just imagine if that faker Ari statue was turned into Chuck E. Cheese.